check. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please find a seat. There's still plenty of seats available. Make yourselves comfortable. This is not going to be a very short program, so you might want to get comfortable. Can you hear me at the back? Okay. Good. Thank you. Honorable Mayor Botka, distinguished guests, family, members of the community, friends, on behalf of Rabbi Hershey and the entire community of the Chabad of North Fulton, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all, or as we say, y'all, today to share in and be a part of this momentous occasion and phenomenal milestone. It seems a little incredulous that a year has passed since we gathered for Rashi's memorial service. You may remember that evening we announced a generous matching gift to the tune of $1.5 million towards our building campaign. Rabbi Hershey's classmates also announced an initiative to donate a new Sefer Torah to the community, and indeed the first letters were inscribed that evening. At the conclusion of that event, I stood at the podium and implored for us to come together and ensure that we raise the money and have a new building in which to house that new Sefer Torah. My friends, we stand here today commemorating the first Yahrtzeit of our Rebbetzin, co-founder, wife, mother, daughter, sister, and above all friend, and we are proud and honored to be fulfilling that task. No doubt it is in her merit and memory that we are in this position today, but it is through your generosity, your love, sympathy, and the general rallying together as a family and community from all four corners of the world that this effort is rewarded and Rashi's memory is perpetuated in the manner that it deserves and respects. So give yourselves a warm round of applause. Today we will commemorate Rashi's memory on her Yahrtzeit. We will celebrate the groundbreaking of Rashi's campus, a Jewish center comprehensively serving all Jews in North Fulton County. And we will dedicate a new Sefer Torah, which we will place in our beautiful new shul. As with all events of this nature, it certainly does take a village, and we are forever grateful to all the individuals and companies that have donated their time, effort, and resources so selflessly. There is a comprehensive list of all our sponsors at the back of your program, and we implore you to support them in the manner that they have supported us. On behalf of our community, thank you very, very much, sponsors. I also want to just thank everybody for traveling from, I see, as far as China to come here today and to be a part of this. And I also would like to welcome Joel Marks, representing the Jewish Federation of Atlanta. A special thank you to Alison Pollock of Planning Makes Perfect for overseeing this entire event, together with the co-chair of our building campaign, Gabrielle Starr. We hope that all of you sitting here today and those watching via our live feed throughout the world enjoy today's events and derive much joy, pleasure, and pride. We begin today's program with the Yahrtzeit ceremony. Members of the family will be sharing some personal thoughts and reflections, and without further ado, it is an honor to call one of the finest speakers and teachers you will witness, and a legend of which no adjectives quite suffice. I would like to introduce you all to one truly remarkable lady, Rashi's mom, Mrs. Sarah Lieberman.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know why I'm up here. I never thought I'd be up here. I don't know what to say, but I can't say no to Rabbi Hershey. The day after I arrived, he just said, "You'll say a few words, right?" I said, "Yes." Rabbi Hershey said, "Well, that's why we're all here, because of Rabbi Hershey. He should live and be well and be able to continue his great work." I will mention a few points. A lot of what I will say is very deep in my heart, but it sort of began to flourish yesterday when I was in shul at the Kaddish in honor of Rashi. I realized one thing, that indeed the collective heart of the Jewish community of Alpharetta is beating fiercely, loyally, with great pride, and with great passion. In the Tanya, the monumental work of the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, where the whole philosophy of Chabad is laid down, the Alter Rebbe describes the Jewish people as one complete body. Every single Jew is part of this body, and at the center of this body, there is a heart that beats and pumps blood to every single part, from the brain to the toe. Interestingly, at the core of this body is Hashem, is the divine presence. We have discussed this in the portions of the week, the last few weeks. God rests in the sanctuary, and the sanctuary is in every Jewish heart. So this community is a community of heart above all else, and I want to mention that because it is a very, very inspiring place and a model for all Jewish communities everywhere. I don't ever speak about personal things. I don't know how. I don't feel comfortable. But again, because of Rabbi Hershey, I will share some thoughts about Rashi, and by extension, about all of you and all of us. In the Eshes Chayil chapter, written by King Solomon, that is familiar to most of us from some of the prayers we say Friday night before the Kaddish, there is a very striking verse. Piha patcha b'chachma v'tarat chesed al lashona. Her mouth is open with wisdom, and a Torah of kindness is on her tongue. And the Medrash in Yalkut Shimoni makes the following comment. It seems to indicate in this verse that there are two kinds of Torah. There is a Torah of kindness, and there is a Torah not of kindness. What does that mean? The Medrash explains. There is a Torah of kindness. That is the Torah that one studies for oneself, a very great and wonderful thing. But the Torah of kindness is the Torah that one studies for the purpose of sharing with others. Rashi Aleh Shalom. I never said those words before publicly. Actually personified and exemplified this. She dedicated her life to the people of Alpharetta, to her family, by extension to the entire Jewish world, by sharing and teaching everything that she learned herself. And I would like to give you some examples. Rashi would call me very often. We would talk about things like the children's clothes and the children's progress in school and the children's difficulties in some classes, things mothers and daughters talk about, and about baking and cooking. But more than anything, we would discuss the Torah classes she has been giving for so many years. We would discuss what would the Torah classes be about this year. Would it be about the Jewish holidays, Jewish laws and customs, things of interest to women, Jewish philosophy, Jewish books, the prayer book, and the different prayers. Rashi was very organized, and she would type notes of all the things we discussed. She would send them to me every week. I would come home, and my husband would greet me if he was home as soon as he would come and say, "Here are some papers Rashi sent you." I would take the papers and I would read them, and I thought they were wonderful, and I thought I would add some things or change some things. Before I had a chance to finish reading them, Rashi was on the phone. She knew when I would come home, and she would say, "Okay, so is it already corrected?" And I would say, "Soon, the children are coming, I have to make supper." She said, "I need it now." And every week, for the weeks that this went on, we did it now. And she would send it back. And it was incredible for me to see how at the beginning she would ask me for material, and we would share things we had learned. And then she would find so much of her own that I never knew. So when I would read her last draft, I would learn so much that I would then share with my students, and I still do. To me, this Torah and tea goes way beyond anything. Many years ago, when I was a child in school, I read an article about tea. It was a very interesting article. It was all about the plant and the drink and the history and about the caffeine in the tea. I guess caffeine has good history, bad history, depending on what period we're in. And I said to my father, it's not so good. We drink too much tea in this house. My Baba lived with us. She drank tea, and we drank tea all the time, and we still do. And Rashi drank lots of tea. And my father said to me in Yiddish, "Sorg sich nicht, don't worry. There is a word by Hasidim, there is a saying by Hasidim, that there are three things that begin with the letter Tav, the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the sound of the letter T, and one can never have too much of them. One is Tehillim, Psalms, one is Tanya, the book of Hasidus, and one is T. And I see there was never too much. There wasn't enough." And wonderful deeds. Rashi's mikvah, the pride and joy of mikvahs all around the world. how precious it was to her. How she would say that I never call her. So I would try to call her, and I would leave a message or not even leave a message. And when she would call back, she would say, "Don't you know I was busy with the mikvah?" Of course, it was her child. It is her being. And in this merit, so many wonderful Jewish families are flourishing. Another thing I want to share. Yesterday, I heard Rena, and I heard Mindy, and I heard Yaakov, and I heard many other people. And they really expressed the heart of Alpharetta. I told Mindy today that we're going to be concluding the Torah, and there is a teaching that we observe and follow and believe. The word Yisrael, the Jewish people, stands for the Hebrew word Yesh Shishim Riboy Otiot La Torah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah, one for every single Jew, going back to the original Jewish people who accepted the Torah at Sinai. And today when I saw Mindy, I told her that when she spoke yesterday, that was an expression of her letter. Or Jeanette, who lovingly and dedicatedly gives her life to the Talmud Torah. Or the ladies who turn a shul Kaddish into an experience of Torah, kindness, love, learning, and Jewish education. Thank you so much to Tracy and the other Tracy and Susan and Mandy and all the other incredible people. I think even in New York, you would stand out above the rest. I would just like to conclude because it's very difficult for me to speak here. But Rabbi Hershey, you inspire us in a way that nobody ever has and nobody ever will. And to your parents, you inspire us just as much. And to my family and Hershey's family and all our friends all over the world, and at the Crown, Mendel, who now is not only part of my family but part of my household. He's one of the boys in my house who has to be woken up every morning to go to school on time. And Yoel, and Henya, and Tanya, glorious examples of Jewish girls. And Naphtali, and Shaya, and David, and Alter, who sang school songs to me as he took a bath this Friday, and David, who did not believe that the paint of his Purim policeman face would ever come off. We love you all more than anything in the world, and we hope that the next time we meet in this new campus, which will already have outgrown itself, it will be with the coming of Mashiach. Thank you all of you, for everything. And I want to mention one more thing. I was very, very moved and touched when a very old and dear friend of ours, or two very old and not old people, but old and dear friends of ours, showed up this afternoon. We did not think they would come. We knew they had other plans. Dr. Leonard and Julia Sachs, who, if you will believe me or not, many years ago, my husband and I lived in Cape Town, South Africa. And Rashi was born a few short months after we arrived. Thank God she was well and healthy. And I said to the staff at the hospital, I need a pediatrician to see my baby. And they said, pediatrician? In this country, pediatricians are specialists. You don't need a specialist. And I said, I don't know anything about your country. I hope I will learn. But in New York City, where I live, a pediatrician sees our babies. And we were introduced to Dr. Sachs and to his wife and to their children. And we are very, very honored that you are here with us. You have enriched our lives very much. And we hope to continue to share many simchas with you. And to all the shluchim and shluchais, Rabbi New and Mrs. New and everybody else, May you continue your incredible work, and may we all merit the coming of Mashiach speedily. Thank you very much.
Cannot say I didn't warn you. Rabbi Hershey, when offering advice or expressing thoughts, most often quotes members of his family, those that obviously infuse him with inspiration and sound advice. The one person he quotes most often is that of his beloved mother. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mrs. Rashi Minkowicz.
Good afternoon, everyone. On the program, they have me described as Hershey's mother. I am Hershey's mother, and I'm proud to be Hershey's mother. But today, I want to speak to you as Rashi's mother-in-law. Allow me, my son writes poems, you know that. So allow me a little bit. I'm not going to tell you a poem. I'm not that. I just decided, how am I going to express to you what I feel about Rashi? And how am I going to tell you what and I represent my children who didn't all make it here. So I decided to a little bit take her name and go through the letters with you. So for the letter R, what does Rashi represent? She was a real person. And real people leave real tracks. She left a beautiful community. The people here are her pride and joy. Today in the morning, when they announced the run for Rashi, 6 o'clock in the morning, it's cold, it's dark, and when we drove up to the parking lot, there were cars, the parking lot was almost full, and the people there were excited to be part of this. So these are the tracks that Rashi left, and for that, I have to thank her community. The letter A, she was attuned, she was attentive, and she appreciated every single person. In whatever they were, she was not judgmental. The girls who came here to be counselors last year, when Hershey and the family were sitting Shiva, we got together on a Shabbos afternoon, and one of the young ladies is here today, and she represents the old alumni of Gan Izzy of Alpharetta. And she got up and she said that there was never a counselor who applied for a job that Rashi said, let me first do research about her if she deserves to be a counselor here. She accepted everyone. She just gave everybody a fair chance. For the letter S that came to mind was, Rashi was a shlucha to the fullest sense of the word. She had style, she had her unique style, and that's why she has such a showing. She was, she had a strength and a love for life, and her smile that is all over the campus now is just looking at us. That's what she generated. She generated a sense of smile and joy. H, she did everything with a sense of humility. She didn't want to be posted up. This is very unusual for Rashi to be all over, pictures all over of her. She never made a big to-do about her. If we ever spoke to her, she would say, I had whatever over, and we'd say, Rashi, how'd you do this? She says, oh, it's nothing. Rashi, Torah and Tea, nah, it's nothing. The kids helped me, this one helped me. That's Rashi. And for the letter I, she inspired. She is an inspiration, and her community is an inspiration. And as a mother, I just want to say to Hershey, it's not an easy task that you have in front of you, but you have a loving community that are going to be there for you. They are there for you right now. They love you. They love your children. To Mendel, Yael, Henya, Tanya, Shaya, Naftali, David and Alter, you are keeping your father going, and you give him the strength. and you will continue to grow and you will continue to flourish because the Eibishter is with you all. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Rashi Minkowicz, Rashi's cousin who has traveled from California. She, I guess, is representing of the hundreds of counselors that have been through here at our now world famous Camp Gan Izzy Alpharetta edition. Rashi, I believe, was a head counselor under Rashi's directorship maybe 10 years ago. So Rashi Minkowicz, please.
Sorry, I tried to grow a few inches before I got here, but it did not work out. Hello, everyone. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. First of all, I'm in awe of this amazing crowd. I have not been to Alpharetta in about 10 years. So it's amazing to see the growth, the mikvah, the pool. Last time I was here, we did everything in this building. We stand here today to celebrate this amazing, auspicious event of creating a Torah, which is the greatest height in Judaism, and the groundbreaking for this new building. And it's a day of joy and simcha and celebration, and yet we look around and we are missing Rashi, we miss her spirit and just her person. We miss Rashi being here. And the month of Adar, which we're in now, is a month also about joy and celebration. It says, Misha Nichnas Adar Ma'arim B'Simcha. We should enter this month with joy and happiness, and Simcha parts together. Simcha, joy breaks all boundaries. And yet we wake up some mornings and it's hard to get out of bed. We see darkness around us. We see tragedy. Sometimes God makes it more difficult for us to see the joy and the happiness. And so we say, how do we move on? How do we find this joy? And the answer to that, for me, and I think for all of us here, is Rashi. When I think of Rashi, the first word that comes to mind is laughter. No matter what Rashi was going through or what was happening, we would sit around and we would laugh. And her laugh was infectious and contagious, and we'd all feel the joy. It could be she's going through her children, a hard time, she found the humor in that. Making Shabbos for hundreds of people, she found the humor in that. Her amazing joy, mitzvah of mikvah, every night she would sit there and she was tired sometimes. She'd send us constantly, she'd send our cousin WhatsApp selfies of her outfit of the day, what she came up with to wear the mikvah. And she was our oldest cousin on the Gonsberg side of the family, so she always called herself the geriatric cousin. And we used to tell her, and I say this with utmost respect, that she's the most immature geriatric cousin we could have. Because Rashi's laughter was constant, and it was just a beautiful thing to be around. We would sit for hours and hours and just laugh as if we didn't have children. She didn't have beautiful children to wake up to the next morning. She gave us her utmost joy and laughter. And how did she find this joy? Where does joy come from? So we learned that joy, we're born with joy. The soul, when it's born, is joyful and happy. And it's innate. It's not something we have to acquire. You look at a child, you look at a baby, they're happy. They're born being happy because the soul is happy. It's a part of Hashem, is connected to God, and so it's born happy. And it's only the body that gets burdened down and weighed down by all the things that come with life. We got to do this and responsibility, and this happens and that happens, and our body gets weighed down. And that's where the joy starts to kind of go out of our life. So Rashi was always connected to her inner child. She had this innate joy. She felt it no matter what was going on in life. She was connected to that inner child. She had that happiness and laughter. And how is that so? How was she able to have that? Because the soul is the soul is pure happiness. And Rashi was so connected with her soul. The soul, when it knows its mission and purpose in life, it can be happy. It has the joy in it. You know what you're doing, you know what's coming, you know what you have to accomplish in your life, and that brings absolute joy. And so I think we can all learn from Rashi that whatever we are in life, we have to take this innate joy, we have to take this happiness, this laughter, and carry it through everything that we're going through. So I just want to end off by saying that together may we all dance with our new Torah, may we laugh even a little, In honor of Rashi, may we break boundaries, may we shatter all limitations with our new Torah. May we speedily have Mashiach and hear Rashi's laughter echo through the beautiful new building that we will start off today. Thank you.
Our next guest is another cousin of Rashi. She has many cousins. Levi Margolin. Levi has traveled to be from Yerushalayim. I saw a post of his on Facebook on Thursday night inviting everybody to his house for Purim in Yerushalayim, and I knew that he was speaking today. I texted Rabbi Hershey. I said, "Are you sure Levi Margolin's speaking on Sunday?" He said, "Yes, he is." And amazingly enough, I saw him come in this morning. Levi lives in Yerushalayim. He works for the Taglit Birthright program amongst numerous other jobs, one of them including being a blogger at the Times of Israel. So let me introduce to you Levi Margolin.
Thank you, Rashi Marcus, for taking away my short people joke. Can I just take this out? Is this one also? Hello? The last time I spoke at a Siyum Sefer Torah, at a family gathering, was for a Siyum Sefer Torah for my grandfather, Oliver Sholom's, on his 7th Yahrtzeit. And I had the privilege, actually, of following Rashi Minkowicz right after she spoke. And just a random point. Good afternoon, everybody. Hershey, everybody, Chaimeir, Sarah, Rabbi, Mrs. Minkowicz, family, friends, and like Rashi Marcus said, this crowd. If I said I wasn't nervous, I'd be lying. It's an honor and privilege to speak in front of such an inspiring crowd about such an inspiring person. And it's true, I did literally just get off the plane from Tel Aviv, basically, and I'm very honored to be here. 1 year ago, the Shabbos after Rashi passed away, I was at one of my usual spots for Shabbos dinner in Jerusalem, at the home of one of Hershey's classmates, Rabbi Yossi Swerdlov and his wife Mendel. And as usual, the crowd over there was pretty diverse and quite unique. And as we're going around the table introducing ourselves, I learned that the week's crowd was a group from the Jewish Federation of Orange County, California. A group of Californians. When my turn came around, I introduced myself, and then I raised a glass l'chaim to my cousin, Rashi, and to Hershey and the kids and the whole family. And I spoke of my cousin that had just passed away and throughout her life had inspired the entire world. I spoke of a place that I had never been, Alpharetta, Georgia, and at that moment I learned that, oddly, while this was a group of Californians, there was a fellow in the crowd from Alpharetta, Georgia. Even more oddly, considering it was a Jewish Federation trip, this fellow wasn't Jewish. And I assume he's probably still not Jewish. It's just a guess, I don't know. His name was David. He lives somewhere here in Alpharetta. I have actually emailed him a couple of times. If you're here, David, hi. He never met the Minkowicz family, but he felt inspired. He had Jewish friends who knew the Minkowitzes, and he had seen through social media and through his friends that Rashi was a person who inspired. She inspired people because she cared. She truly cared about everyone. It was about a week before Rashi passed away that I had my last conversation with her. And when I say conversation, I mean the modern type on WhatsApp. Who uses a telephone anymore? And me looking for my bashert, and Rashi knowing every single girl and their sister was the perfect person to talk to. And while that was our last conversation about this subject, sadly, it certainly wasn't our first. Rashi would randomly message me from time to time about a person she had in mind, or following up on somebody else's suggestion. She didn't do it just, because it was something that she felt she needed to do. She did it because she wanted to. She did it because she cared. She did it because my life and my happiness mattered to her. And it doesn't come as a surprise for some, but we weren't the closest of cousins. We're not in the same age bracket. She was slightly older than me, and we didn't particularly know each other that well. But I knew one thing, and I still know one thing, that Rashi, as I said, genuinely cared. She made this, and for many other people, many people who are happily married, and she was involved in that as well, she made this her mission. Her concern and interest was beyond simply caring. Rashi was a doer. She used her influence as much as she could to make something happen. It wasn't always easy to hear. It wasn't always what I wanted to hear. But throughout the years, I feel privileged to have been coached by her expertise in life. Even when she knew it might make me uneasy, which Those who know me know it's very difficult to make me uneasy. That's a joke. A joke from my brothers. She pushed me to my limit because she believed in me, and sometimes even more than I did. She encouraged me to put in that extra effort because she cared and she wanted me truly to get this done. Rashi really loved everyone. She invested in the people she met, from the amazing stories that I've heard from all over the place. And last Shabbos, I hosted a Shabbos dinner at my apartment in Jerusalem, and there were two girls that have both been counselors here, and they spoke glowingly about Rashi, and it was a beautiful thing to hear. She 100% genuinely cared about everyone. Hershey, the kids, her parents, her siblings, Hershey's siblings, nieces, nephews, cousins, everybody here, all the people that have graced this glorious Chabad house, all the counselors that have been here throughout the years, and of course the Jewish community at Alpharetta that Rashi didn't only serve, but pretty much with Hershey helped create. 1 year ago, when we all gathered here in Alpharetta to commemorate Rashi and celebrate her life, I met a young man. He glowingly told me of his upcoming gap year program in Israel at Yeshivat Yahrtzeit. I gave him my business card, which I love to do, and if anybody wants, I have a few here. Several months ago, this young man, Chad Shapiro, son of Tracy and Chad, Tracy and Anthony, we all know what I meant to say, and I understand you guys are actually going to Israel tomorrow, so send regards. Chad called me and he wanted to come over for Shabbos, and he wanted to bring two friends with him. So my place in Jerusalem is certainly a bachelor pad with empty beer bottles on every windowsill and other random things. But we are definitely a place where people like to crash. We certainly know the idea of crashing. So without hesitation, I invited him and his two friends in. Later in the day, he called me. He had a third friend he wanted to bring. That was on Wednesday. By Friday morning, it was Chad and four other friends, one of which ended up puking on the carpet, which I really was very appreciative for. I know Chad's watching from Jerusalem, so I said that just for him. That Shabbos at lunch, Chad was talking, and he spoke about his family and the Minkowitzes and the inspiring stories from Hershey and Rashi and the entire family. And he spoke lovingly, and he spoke with emotion, and he spoke beautiful words of Torah and Chassidus. And he spoke in a fashion that I know would have made Rashi very proud. Just a few days after Rashi passed away, when Torah and Tea was in the midst of taking the world by storm, Andre Perez, an acquaintance I had met in Bermuda 5 years earlier, tagged me in a Facebook post. Andre and I had been sporadically in touch from time to time. I was in Bermuda with my brother Mendel as part of the Chabad Lubavitch International Roving Rabbis program, bringing Judaism directly to the doorstep of Jewish people all over the world. And when these roving rabbis on these journeys, as I know Mendel and Hershey and anybody else who has been on this journey or is on this journey for life can attest to, you always wonder if you've ever left any inspiration with these people, because sometimes it's not clear and present for you to take home with you. This is from my friend Levi Margolin. Rashi was his first cousin, he wrote. I hope the following initiative will provide solace to the family. He then proceeded to outline the plan for an ongoing Torah and Tea program at his home. Rashi was bringing the entire Jewish world together. She made us all family. And you can see here today this beautiful family, and it's even beyond that. And I think it's just super fitting that 1 year later we're gathering to mark the completion of a Sefer Torah, something which Rashi lives for, and this beautiful crowd and the beautiful family. And may we always meet at Simchas, and may we all merit the ultimate Simcha, the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, true and final redemption with Mashiach Tzidkenu now. Amen.
As long as it wasn't my son who messed the carpet. Definitely not a Lubavitcher that did that. Our next speaker, when you see her face, there's absolutely no doubt whose child this is. I don't even have words to introduce, but a very, very special young lady in our lives and everybody sitting here and beyond. This is Torah Minkowicz.
guys are here to celebrate the groundbreaking for my mother's camp. My mother is a very special person. We have so many good memories together. One of my favorite memories was when we had a guest for Shabbos and we were all standing in the kitchen and talking. There's a picture in the kitchen of my mother as a little girl. The guest looked at the picture and told my mother that I looked exactly like her. Later that night, my mother came into my room to say goodnight and then told me, "I'm so happy that you look like me because you're so beautiful." There are so many amazing things to say about my mother, but I would be standing here forever. I love you, Mom. You won't miss you up now.
Before we conclude this segment of our program with the Kaddish, I am very, very proud to call this young man to address you. He has shared much with us this last year via social media. He's made us smile, he's made us cry, and we have watched him grow in his first year of high school in New York. He has been the catalyst behind Rashi's campus and truly shows great promise of following in his proud dad's footsteps. Please welcome Rabbi Hershey and Rashi's eldest child, Mendel Minkowicz.
A year has passed since the sudden and tragic news of the passing of my dearest mother. It has been a life-changing experience for me this past year, as you all could probably imagine. I had to get adjusted to a new life, a life that I would never for a second think that I could ever manage. But I think that I was wrong. Somehow I managed, not just me, but my entire family. We decided we would move forward, and we did. It is a life that no one should ever need to know. But if it did happen, I am lucky to be in the family that I am in, which made it possible to manage the way we did. As you might also know, last year when my mother passed away, besides for deciding to move forward as a family, I also had this dream about the community. I decided that we needed to build a new center for our community where my mother's work would continue. During the Shiva, I talked to my father and some of you about launching a campaign to build Rashi's campus. To tell the truth, it was a dream, and something that I thought would never ever become a true reality. Yet today I stand here after a year of hard work, and I'm so happy to tell you that my dream has come and we are getting ready to start to build this campus and have an impact on thousands of people. Not just here, but also all over the world. There was a saying from Alice Sebold, who was an American writer. She says, "Sometimes the dreams that come true are the dreams you never even knew you had." One dream I know I do have is that to make my mother happy. The way I continue to live each day is what will ultimately bring her the great happiness. Thank you.
We will conclude this segment of the Yahrtzeit ceremony with the traditional mourner's Kaddish, which will be said by Rashi's father, Rabbi Chaim Meir Lieberman.
Achat in Stung and Navis and Mida, the American and Wayne, even Shabbat, the Gal, the Heda, David Gavan, Kashem, Razak, as well as Axis Israel, River, and Mr. Schneemar, and Neck of Baseman, Tita, Yago, Taylor, the other. It's God, Albi, God, Ashmei, Rabot, Yel Madura Cruse, the Yamak Mahuse, the Yasmak, Kani, the Karimishihe, Hayachain, and Hayachain, the Hay, the whole base Israel, Bagol of his man, Karib in Ruamay, Shmei, Rabbi, Borach, Yolam, Alom, Mayo, is Barak, Yishtav, his Hovis, Romis, Nase, is Ador, Visalavi, Salon, Shmei, the Kuchabriko, the Elam, Khasa, Bishasa, Khasa, Nakmosa, the Yom of Ruamay, the Aish, Lama, Rabbi, Shmai, Haim, Taylor, Plain of Alcohol, Israel, and Ruamay. איזה שלום ואינו עבור יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
This building campaign actually began in January of 2012, and we wish to pay tribute and thank all those that have worked so assiduously on this campaign, none more so than the campaign co-chairs, Todd and Gabby Starr. Todd and Gabrielle, while never seeking the limelight, are an enormous asset to our community. Todd particularly so on the softball field, in the very competitive Shul League, and Gabrielle, whose organization skills, attention to detail, and hours of tireless effort has culminated in what you all witness here today. The stars continue to provide and contribute so much to us, but I know that what Rabbi Hershey treasures more than anything is their friendship. For me personally, it has been a privilege and honor to work alongside Todd and Gabby, and I'm very proud to call them friends. Please join in welcoming the building campaign co-chairs, Todd and Gabrielle Starr.
Welcome everybody, welcome. I'm Todd Starr, and along with my wife Gabrielle, Anthony Shapiro, Craig Isaacs, Barry Herman, and Rabbi Minkowicz. It's my privilege, it's really my honor to be able to update you on the capital campaign. Just over 3 years ago, Rabbi Hershey approached Gabrielle and I to help lead the campaign. And as it's been said, you can't really say no to Rabbi Hershey. So even though we were a little overwhelmed with the idea, we of course took the challenge. And really in January of 2012, during an Atlanta Falcons playoff football game, Hershey wanted to have the first meeting, and we did. Hershey kicked the meeting off, really telling us that for the last 13 years, Rashi and he had laid the foundation for the community, and now it was time to have a permanent home. A small, very small grassroots effort began with just a few of us calling the community and soliciting pledges, led by Anthony. For those of you who haven't solicited before, you can relate when I tell you the process has been very slow. Anthony, who personally called hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, deserves a huge round of applause for sticking with it. As the no's and the no callbacks started to pile up, we were there just to support him. But he really led the charge and got us to where we are today. Soliciting one person at a time when you have a $4 million goal is monumental. However, it is my honor to stand here today and tell you that we have pledged over $3.1 million. Within a few weeks, the land clearing will begin, and in January 2017, we will be here opening Rashi's campus. Gabrielle told me to remind everyone to book your events now. But we still have not reached the goal yet. We have a $4 million goal so that this project can be 100% debt-free. So if you have not pledged yet, please do. There are a number of ways to pledge, including a lump sum, pledging over 5 years, or the 18 for 18 campaign. If anyone had any doubts, and that's why you haven't pledged, I'm standing here and telling you that this is happening, and it is happening today. A lot has happened since our first meeting with the rabbi just over 3 years ago. The landscape of the community has changed forever, as we all know, and now the landscape will again be changed with a permanent campus to honor Rashi and the community she helped build. We are blessed to be led by an amazing rabbi, really a dear, dear friend, and honestly the most resilient man I have ever met. Now is the time for the community to join together and finish this process. Thank you.
It is a great pleasure for me to introduce the Director of Chabad of Georgia, Rabbi Yossi New.
Thank God I remembered to wear my high-heeled shoes. Firstly, I'd like to remark that it is impossible for most of us here to understand and to fully comprehend what Hershey and his family have gone through this past year and will continue to experience. But I must say that you, Hershey, have been an incredible source of inspiration, an example par excellence, how to confront adversity and to transform darkness into light. And I know that you know very well, more than anyone else, that it can't be done alone. It takes a village, and your family, Rashi's family and your family, the Alpharetta community, and the family of Shluchim here in Georgia and throughout the world have all played their part to help you and your children in this odyssey. Today's groundbreaking is no coincidence that it takes place in this week's Torah portion, Vayakel. This week's Torah portion describes the first building campaign recorded in history. The building campaign for the building of the Mishkan, the house of God that the Jewish people would build in the desert. And today, here in Alpharetta, we are also dedicating a house of God, the Chabad Center. And two outstanding features of this building campaign are recorded in today's Parsha. One, that the women contributed more to this campaign than their husbands, the men. This edifice will be called Rashi's campus. In the Jewish tradition, we recognize the wife as the Akeret Habayit, as the foundation of the home, the one partner who is more responsible, if you will, for the spirit and the love of the home. And as we have heard, this is not only true for Rashi in her personal life, but in her communal life. And therefore it is only fitting that it is she who is contributing more than anyone else her memory, her legacy, and her inspiration to the building of this wonderful campus. Feature number two. Believe it or not, folks, it was not only the first, but the most successful building campaign in history. At some point, Moses asked people to stop donating because they had more than they needed. And let's make this one the second in history, where at some point, Rabbi, if you can imagine this, that Rabbi Minkowicz, maybe we can make a deal, because we still have a mortgage. But may this campaign be so successful that you will have more than you need for the campaign, and you'll be able to apply it to operating expenses. May this house of God, may this Mikdash Ma'at, this mini temple be the inspiration and the final step towards the Mikdash HaShlishli, the building of the third Beit HaMikdash, the glorious house of God in the holy city of Yerushalayim, speedily in our days. Thank you.
A lot has happened over this last year, and I want to introduce somebody that joined our community the week after Rashi's passing. Stephanie Crystal and her husband Sean, originally from Baltimore, Maryland, moved to the area from Savannah, Georgia, about 13 years ago with their two children, Zoe and Zachary. And as I said, the week after Rashi's passing is when they actually joined our community. Stephanie Crystal would like to share a few words with us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm extremely honored to be here. I'm very, very grateful and feel very privileged that Rabbi Hershey has asked me to be a part of this ceremony and celebration of Rashi, of her life and her legacy. I must admit that I was surprised that the rabbi thought that I had an interesting enough perspective to include me in today's events, because the truth is, I never had the pleasure of meeting Rashi. My relationship with Chabad began exactly 1 year ago when my husband Sean and I started having conversations about reconnecting with our Jewish faith. I'm from a predominantly Jewish town in Baltimore, and both of our families raised us in Reform households. The high holidays were always an integral part of our lives and the lives of our extended families. We both went to Hebrew school, had our bar and bat mitzvahs, and my husband went on to confirmation and Hebrew high school. We had always made sure that our own children felt connected to their Jewish heritage, but by this point in their lives, we hadn't exposed them to the same level of Jewish education with which both my husband and I had been raised. So as our daughter Zoe quickly began to approach bat mitzvah age, we knew the time was long overdue to search out a connection with the local Jewish community, hoping to have our kids cultivate a deeper relationship with their Judaism. A friend of mine and her children are longtime Chabad members and always spoke very highly of Rabbi Hershey, of Rashi, and of all of Chabad, so I made an appointment to meet with the rabbi. He was immediately warm and cordial, and he welcomed me and my family to the Chabad with open arms. We spoke at length about how his wife Rashi built Chabad's Hebrew curriculum and Camp Gan Izzy from the ground up. She was the head of the school, and to my delight, I learned she would also be Zoe's teacher the following week when my kids started the program. But sadly, it was not to be. Rashi passed away just days after our meeting, leaving the rabbi, their children and family, the Chabad, and the entire Jewish community of Atlanta utterly devastated. My initial thoughts, beyond the feeling of terrible sadness at the tragic and sudden loss of a young wife and mother, were, how will the rabbi go on? How will he raise his children? How will children possibly grow up without their mother? And then my thoughts turned to Chabad and my family's newfound relationship with them. How can Chabad continue on without Rashi, who was very much the lifeblood of the congregation? I started to second guess my decision, and I thought maybe this wasn't the best time to join a community of people who were going to be so understandably preoccupied, overwhelmed, and overcome with grief. I contacted Rabbi Hershey within a few days of his devastating loss to offer my deepest, most heartfelt condolences. Within a series of back and forth emails between us, I asked him how the loss of Rashi would affect Chabad Hebrew School and all of its associated activities. I fully expected him to tell me that school would have to be canceled until further notice, and all of the wonderful upcoming events that Rashi had planned would need to be put off until a time yet to be determined. Not only did I expect it, I completely understood that this would be his response. I quickly learned that I could not have been more wrong. Immediately, Rabbi Hershey assured me that everything would move forward as normal, or at least they would find a new normal. The rabbi helped me to recognize that indeed it was the exact right time to join Chabad. It was a testament to Rashi's ongoing legacy that not only was Chabad not going to crumble, but on the contrary, they would be better and stronger and still attract families like mine that find inspiration in the positive consequence that Rashi had created. I was amazed. Here was a family man, a parent just like me, who had just experienced one of the most life-altering losses a person can suffer. And he was reassuring me that everything was going to be okay. Over the course of the past year, I've often wondered how a tragedy like this affects the conviction of a person of faith. How can a man like Rabbi Hershey, who has dedicated his life to Judaism and his faith therein, possibly have the same certitude after so much had been arbitrarily taken from him? My answer came in bits and pieces within a year's time through our conversations and reading the rabbi's weekly Torah bar, a mass email sent out to Chabad members on every Shabbat. It's something I look forward to reading every week because of the point of view it offers. Most of the time, the essays are reflections of the rabbi's thoughts and attitudes about navigating his daily life without Rashi, but from the most surprisingly beautiful, enlightened, and positive perspective. I'm sure the rabbi has his private moments of darkness, but his faith is not shattered. He has gracefully faced his own daily challenges with a firm belief that Rashi is still very much with him, his children, his family, and in fact, all of us. It's in her legacy, it's in the stamp she put on all that she worked so hard to personally create. It's in her community and all who recognize that the depth of her dedication knew no bounds and can clearly be seen even a year after her untimely departure. It's in the faces of her children who in her absence have been so fully loved and nurtured by their dedicated father and family, the people of Chabad, and indeed the entire Jewish community of Atlanta. One of the best decisions I have ever made for myself and my family was made that day a year ago when I sat and connected with a wonderful rabbi and joined his beloved Chabad. For unfortunate reasons unknown, I was denied the opportunity to know Rashi, the woman behind Chabad and the Minkowicz family. But thanks to this strong community, I feel I know her quite well on some spiritual level. Her steadfast commitment to the congregation during her life, along with that of Rabbi Hershey, has made me proud to be here to celebrate her timeless and ongoing legacy and to break ground on the labor of the love she worked so hard to bring to fruition. Thank you so much. God bless.
Ever heard the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know? It is a great privilege to have Mayor Mike Bodka here today, Mayor of Johns Creek. Not only being here today to support us, but he's a constant supporter of our cause, our building, and the Minkowitzes in general. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Mike Bodka, Mayor of Johns Creek.
You know, as I looked at the program when I first got here, I thought to myself, yes, I'm not following Hershey. And then I sat here like you all did, and I realized it doesn't really matter. I'm not worthy to be up here today, but I do want to say to Rabbi New, I know you're busy on the high holidays. You've obviously never come for one of Hershey's high holidays because there's two things that are consistently in every high holiday service. One, that he teaches us and reminds us that Hashem's hand is in everything, and I clearly know from what's happened in the last year that Hashem's hand is here, and I'm not sure we'd be sitting here right now if not for the unfortunate circumstances, so he has a way of smiling on all of us. And secondly, that if you actually achieved your goal, that we would be missing the whole second half of his sermons because he begs us for that money for operations and makes us feel so guilty. So I'm not quite sure that we should win that one. That said, 2 days ago, I delivered the State of the City to the residents of Johns Creek, where you now sit. And I feel guilty saying that after so many people have come up here and said, Alpharetta, 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 Alpharetta. And I want you to know that the mayor of Alpharetta was actually there. And I took great pleasure in telling him what a great city Johns Creek is. It ends. Interestingly enough, as the rabbi has said many times, it ends at the border of the Chabad campus, the Rashi's campus. He walks from his backyard in Alpharetta to his favorite place in Johns Creek. And I fought for years. I don't know if Rashi knew our ongoing spat about the use of Alpharetta. That's why we changed it to North Fulton, because I actually was able to guilt the rabbi into something. Not a very easy task. But the theme of my State of the City this year was be a part of the legacy. The legacy of Johns Creek is what I was speaking at the time, and proving again that Hashem's hand is in everything. That theme is equally applicable today, and I didn't know it when we started writing this so long ago, because I think we are all, those who have contributed, both in their energy with Chabad, and those with their money, and those who will contribute their money to get us the remainder of the way there, are a part of the legacy that is Rashi's campus, and that is the wonderful teacher of our Judaism to come, and has been a great teacher of Judaism in the past. My kids have benefited from almost every aspect of Chabad. As a Jewish as a Jewish mayor, I take great pleasure in having Chabad here in Johns Creek, not in Alpharetta. I will tell you that while we all celebrate, I'm actually not celebrating, because with the groundbreaking, I know one thing. Rabbi Hershey has my cell phone number. And anything that goes wrong between now and our day of opening this, a year from now I hope, I will be getting a phone call. And he will be transferring the guilt to me. So, with that, I want to thank you for having the opportunity to be here. I don't truly feel worthy. But I must tell you that I feel Rashi every time I get anywhere near Chabad, and certainly I feel it in a very, very big way today. So thank you for whatever part that each of you have played and what you will play in the future.
Well, just in reverse. Because our next speaker and our final speaker in this segment of events once told me many years ago, I don't even remember what the occasion was, and I was the master of ceremonies, and I said, should I introduce you? He said, you don't need to introduce me. And I said that day, a man that needs no introduction. So he's the founder, the rabbi, leader of this amazing community, and great friend to us all. Many know him as the author of the weekly Hershey Bar. Friends, the undefeatable Rabbi Rashi Minkowicz.
As the Jewish mayor, Jewish rabbi. Good afternoon. I know that time is running short and you've been sitting for a while. Just want to share a couple of words, and then we're going to move on to the actual placing of the Cornerstone and the completion of the Torah. I still haven't made peace with this event. Not the fact that we're having the groundbreaking for a new shul, it's long overdue, but the format in which it's taking place, with Rashi not being here physically. But as I've learned to say, life goes on and you have to keep on marching forward. This morning, a lot of my questions about how we survived this past year were answered in the most unusual way. And it's not even in my notes because it happened this morning. We had a run, a race in the park, and for those of us that are a little bit challenged athletically, there was also an option to walk instead of run.
So I was walking, but I tried doing a little fast walking, and all my children, besides the two youngest, they came and they did the entire walk also. And it was fascinating to me because I was walking and I ended up bumping into someone in the community and walking with her the entire way. And my kids were in front of me. And they were walking, and every once in a while they'd run and then they'd stop and slow down. And I'd almost catch up to them, and then they'd move a little forward again because they are younger and more athletic. And I was standing there thinking to myself that this is really how the whole year unfolded. Because the way I believe very strongly, there's a lot of different components, but one of the most important parts of the survival, and more than survival, but the thriving that we were able to do this past year was, in a certain sense, me following my children. And they were the greatest people to follow. You can almost catch up to them, and then they moved forward again, and they moved the bar again. And when they almost caught up again, then they moved forward again. It wasn't like you hear in all these speeches. I'm telling you, I did not show them the way. They showed me the way. And it was all reflected in the way we walked today in Newtown Park. Yes, 3.1 miles, me, okay? You know, as you heard, I've been writing a column. Well, I've been writing a column already for 5 or 6 years. I started writing it when the Holzbergs were killed in Mumbai. But in the last year, I took the column public in social media, and I've been writing about my experience in grieving and overcoming the loss and transcending and going forward. And many people have been coming to me as it was coming close to a year and suggesting to me that I should make a book. And I should take all the articles and publish it into a book. And I asked somebody, why should I make a book? I know that it's very great to say, you know, Rashi Minkowicz is the author of so-and-so. You say the author of, you become a different kind of person. But really, why should I write a book? So he said, one person said to me, because it's very simple. You went through an experience, and you might have information that can help other people going through the same experience. If you put it into a book, you're going to be able to provide help to so many other people. And I thought about it for all of 1 hour, and I realized that it makes no sense at all, and I'll tell you why. Because what should I write in the book? In order to survive, you have to make sure to pick and choose and Photoshop a family like you have. Go pick and choose a community like you have. Go get together colleagues that you have, your other shluchim in your area that you're close with, close friends. You're going to put together a shmuli and a yassi and a this one and a that one. You can't create that. You can't read it out of a book and create a way to survive. You have to be lucky to have the circle around you that you do. And for this I'm very grateful. There's no way I would be standing here today if not for the fact that I was following my kids that were always 5 steps ahead of me, like in the run today. There's no way I would be here today if not for the people, every single one of you. Most importantly, of course, the rock solid community that we have here in Johns Creek, Georgia. Just want to say to you 2 things. Before I do that, I'm not going to be giving thank yous because the list would be too big. Whenever you start with thank yous, you always get into trouble because you miss out some people. But one exception, because it ties into the event. There's one man that Rashi and I met when we started thinking about building the mikvah. We met him in the most random of circumstances. And we were introduced to him through a mutual person. And he was and is an architect. We didn't know him from Adam. He didn't know us from Adam. He had no idea what he was in for when he said he was going to meet with us about a job that we wanted to do. But guess what? We had no idea what we were in for as well. And this man, literally through his entire life, every free minute, and now I'm learning not even the free minutes, even the minutes when the paying clients would be paying, he is devoted heart and soul. The building gets tweaked. The floor plan, he sleeps at night. He comes up with more tweaks and more tweaks. This is a plan that's 3 years in the making, by the way, from the greatest mind. So the one person that I just want to highlight today is my very, very, very dear friend that God really put us together, and that's Ari Khan, wherever you are. Ari, stand up. Stand up. Ari. Thank you.
I joked with him on Purim that it so happens that he has the contract for designing all the Burger Kings in the Southeast. So I said, you know, he does the cheeseburgers for the paying customers and the shuls for the free customers. But now the two things that I want to just share with you before we go on to the rest of the program with this finishing of the Torah and the dancing and the celebration. Thursday or Wednesday, I forgot when it was, the other day I got a text message from a woman that her and her husband run the Chabad house at Duke University in North Carolina, in the Chapel Hill, whatever the city's called. And I shared it with some people, and it was just very touching because it was 4 lines, and she sent me a picture of a boy that's in college there that came to a party that they were having for Purim. So I guess it had to be on Thursday morning when I got this text. They had the party on Wednesday night. And she writes, the wife of the rabbi, the Rebbitzin, writes to me the following. He was wearing a green costume, the kid. The kid in green came last night to our Purim party and gave me a 20-minute rant that thanks to his Chabad with you guys and Rashi as his teacher, inspiring him for 3 years, he's here. Otherwise, he would never be here today and celebrate any holidays. The ripple effect continues. This is what she wrote to me. So this is for a kid that lives here, obviously, in the North Fulton area, but is going to school there, and from a typical kind of family that we get to, thank God, be able to service through our educational programs in the Sunday school, family with a limited exposure, and we're able to take them and really inject them with a good sense of pride of Judaism, that now off in college, this is what he shares with the Rebbitzin there when he comes to the party. You know, it struck me that in about 2 minutes, as soon as I finish, we're going to be doing the groundbreaking, or the laying of the cornerstone. In the Jewish tradition, by the way, in traditional Judaism, we do a groundbreaking. In Hebrew, it's called a Hanachat Even Hapina, which means we place the cornerstone. That is the ceremony that we do in traditional groundbreaking ceremony. So in a moment, we have the pile of dirt, and we're going to place a special cornerstone, which I'd like you to all look at on your way out. We got a very special etched, and then we'll have it mounted on the outside of the building. And it dawned on me, you know, $3 million has already been pledged, and typically you would assume, rightfully so, that when there's a ceremony and there's already $3 million on the table, the people that are going to be standing with the hats and the shovels and putting the ground and everything are going to be the donors that gave the significant amount of money. And yet you're going to see in a few minutes that the ceremony, no one that contributed, whether it was $1 or $1 million, no one had any interest whatsoever in being in the spotlight other than my children being the one placing the cornerstone for Rashi's campus. That to me is a phenomenal thought, that people should be able to be committed with significant amounts of money, but yet understand that this is Rashi's campus and her children should place that cornerstone. I think that's a tremendous thing, and I hope that you see it that way as well. But I'd like... I would just like to end with the following. There's a story told in the Talmud and filled in by some insights in the Midrashim that says that when they built the temple in Jerusalem, you might go to Israel and visit the Western Wall. The Western Wall is like a remnant from the original building. So in the building, in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, they had many doors and gates. And there was one particular door or gate that was called the Gate of Nicanor. That was the guy's name, Nikanor, Sha'ar Nicanor, the Gate of Nicanor. Why was that gate called that gate? So the story is that when they set out to build the temple, they wanted to make it nice, and there was this one guy named Nicanor, and he had business in Alexandria in Egypt, and he devoted himself heart and soul to create the nicest doors possible that he could make at the time. And it was manufactured in Egypt, and he had to get it on a raft or on a boat, on a flotilla up to Israel, and he donated it to the temple. And he went through tremendous sacrifice of his own money, of his own energy, getting the doors manufactured and getting them shipped from, and this is prior to Lipsy Logistics, you have to understand, shipping doors from Egypt to Israel 2,500, 3,000 years ago was quite a feat. He went through tremendous effort to get it there, and in fact, the story goes that when he were on the ship, a storm came. and they realized that if they don't get rid of some of the weight from the boat, everyone's going to drown. The ship is going to sink. So they told him that he has to throw one door. He had 2 doors. He has to throw one door into the ocean. He was devastated, but he had no choice. They threw it in. And then the storm was not subsiding, so they came to him and said, now you have to throw the second door in. And he said to them, if you throw in the second door, throw me also. This is my life, and I will make sure that this door is going to get, at least one door is going to get there. And sure enough, he got to Israel, and then a miracle happened. And when they got to Israel, all of a sudden on the coast, their first door washed up. Anyway, they installed the 2 doors. Many years later, the fortune of the Jewish people got better, and the economy was doing real well, and they had a lot of money. So they went and they coated all the entryways of the temple with gold. Before, all the doors were built out of wood, and they coated it all with gold that it should be royal. One door they did not touch, they did not change. And that was Nicanor's door. And they said, because of the sacrifice and the commitment that he went through to bring these doors here, it will forever carry his name in the way he put it in. We're not going to coat it, we're not going to change it. And forever and ever, even many, many, many years later, because of his commitment and his sacrifice, any remodel, anything that happened, that they never changed, because Nicanor's doors would remain forever. And I thought about this because this is essentially the story of Rashi's campus. She put her life into creating this community with tremendous self-sacrifice on many different levels. And maybe it didn't mean throw me into the water with the door, but metaphorically in many different ways throughout the 15 or 16 years of hard work, of getting a community off the ground from scratch. There were similar types of sacrifice moments where you're giving everything, your own personal life, you're giving up because you have a commitment to a community that you want to see flourish. And therefore, no matter what's going to happen in the future, and God willing, our fortunes will flourish, and we'll build a nice place, and it'll be beautiful, and we'll continue to grow, and it was mentioned we're going to outgrow and all that kind of stuff. But the gate of Rashi's campus will remain always the name of the place, just like the Nicanor gate, because of the sacrifice that she put in all the years of creating this community, literally from nothing, to create it where we have today. And that's exactly the cornerstone that we're going to place now. That will be an eternal remembrance to her commitment, her dedication, her sacrifice to building this community that we have here. So I thank you very much, and now we're going to move on to the program.
Opportunity as soon as we place the cornerstone. So to place the cornerstone, we call 3 of Hershey's children, and I just want to say, if ever you have the opportunity of going to the Minkowicz home on a Thursday night, you will see a Lieberman tradition being fulfilled. The Liebermans, as some of you may have the privilege of knowing, bake beautiful, humongous challahs. And Yoli took it upon himself to continue this tradition. So I've had the privilege of tasting that challah, but I've been there on a Thursday night where he's in the kitchen baking those challahs, in between helping out with the younger kids and their homework, taking the place of his older brother as the older sibling in the house, with the help of these 2 young ladies who, all I can say is, many of you that know them will agree with me, they are my 2 favorite people in the entire world. Enya and Tanya Minkowicz, and Yoli will lay that cornerstone.
Maybe it's this angle. Should this angle?
Yitzchak.
sorry.
Thank you very much. May be seated. Finally, our program proceeds to what is a great celebration in every community, a Siyam Sefer Torah. There's one very, very interesting fact that came up this morning. There are some people that study Maimonides, the Rambam, the Mishneh Torah, his entire works over a one-year period. They study 3 chapters of the Rambam every day. Some of us lesser mortals study it over a 3-year cycle, and we do 1 chapter a day. Today's chapter, Sunday, March the 8th, the 17th of Adar, the Rambam, Sefer HaAva, Hilchos Tefillin, Mezuzah v'Sefer Torah. Today's chapter 7, and this is the first chapter of Hilchos Sefer Torah, what the Rambam teaches about the laws of writing a Sefer Torah is the prescribed chapter to learn for today. And I just thought that was, as we say in Alfreda, divine coincidence.
John's Creek.
This Torah is a little more special and has additional meaning. And once again, I have an honor and a privilege and pleasure to ask a good friend and classmate of Rabbi Hershey, representing all their classmates from Toronto, Rabbi Lazer Gorko, to share some thoughts before the Sefer Torah is completed and dedicated.
Where's the mayor? Mayor, I don't know if it's Alpharetta or Johns Creek, but coming from Canada, whichever it is, my goodness, you guys do weather right. I can't believe I'm standing here without a coat. I still have my boots, what a mistake. But I have to go back to Canada quickly because my wife is getting ready to go out to Torah and Tea tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about the extent of Rashi's reach across literally the entire world. We are going to conclude the inscription of the last letters of the Torah today. And King Solomon tells us that God has 2 candles, 2 sources of light, the Torah scroll and the Jewish soul. And in fact, Rashi's mother told us just moments ago that every letter in the Torah represents a Jewish soul. So the question begs itself, if it is Rashi's Torah, then there is a letter in this Torah for Rashi's soul, then where is Rashi's soul? How can we be writing a Rashi Torah and not have a Rashi soul? And looking around today, I think the answer is obvious. We know precisely where that soul is. Take a look at the beautiful mikveh building and you see there the sanctity of Rashi's soul. Take a look at the Rashi campus and you see the resilience of Rashi's soul. Take a look at your wonderful community and you see the spirit of Rashi's soul. Take a look at the beautiful family and you see the beauty of Rashi's soul. And now we're going to write the last letters of the Torah and you will see Rashi's soul. Indeed, the last word of the Torah is Yisrael. Am Yisrael Chai. And today, Rashi is also Chai. The last letter of the Torah is Lamed. And a year ago, when we sat here and wrote the first letter of the Torah, we wrote the letter Bet. And the last letter, Lamed, the first letter, Bet, put them together and you have the word Lev. And let me tell you, that last year when we sat here, we celebrated the end of an era. This year, today, as we sit here, we celebrate the beginning of an era. And what drove your community and your rabbi and your wonderful family from the end of last era to the beginning of this era, from the last letter of the Torah to the first letter of the Torah, that is the heart of Rashi, that is pulsates through this community, through her husband, through her children, and through this wonderful family. So at this time, we're going to begin the sacred ceremony of inscribing the final letters of the Torah. Rabbi Hershey and his children are going to come forward, and they're going to inscribe the last 4 and 5 letters, the Yud, the Sin, the Resh, Aleph, and Lamed, that comprise the word Yisrael. And again, please say it with me. Am Yisrael Chai. Rabbi Hershey asked me to point out that in the name Yisrael, you also will find the letters of Rashi's name, Resh, Shin, and Yud, embedded in the name Yisrael. Before we write the final letter, I would like to share a thought with you that the Lubavitcher Rebbe shared back in 1981 at a similar occasion at a Siyum Sefer Torah. And he taught the following. Up until that last letter is written, this beautiful scroll is a collection of individual letters. It is not a Torah unless the last letter is written. But once that last letter is inscribed, ladies and gentlemen, the entire Torah scroll transforms from being a collection of 304,000 letters to a single Torah scroll. And here is the power of the Rebbe's thought. If every letter represents a Jewish soul, and indeed we are taught that beyond the 304,000 inscribed letters, there are 600,000 letters in the Torah when you account for each of the vowels that in the Torah don't appear as letters, but as we read them, do indeed appear as letters. Our scribe reminds me it's 304,805 letters, to be precise. And so, my dear friends, if every letter represents a soul, and if at the moment these are fragmented letters, particular individual letters that haven't coalesced to form a single Torah, then our souls, yours and mine, collected right here at the moment, have yet to emerge to that new level of unity where we merge to become a single group. And not only those of us who are here, but those of us who are tuning in from across the world. And those who haven't tuned in. Those who simply know that this event is occurring, or even those who don't. A new Torah will now be completed. This sacred moment will unleash a powerful and potent energy of unity that will bring us all together. You and I hold in the palm of our hands the collective unified soul of the Jewish people. So let us stand with the proper level of reverence and awe as we acknowledge the wonder of unity, the completion of a Torah scroll that brings letters together to form a single Torah, and that brings souls together to form a single people. And Rashi's Torah, Rashi's people, Rashi's community. We now call upon Rashi's father to come forward and inscribe that last letter. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and reflect on the solemnity and sanctity of this powerful moment.
Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov.
As this Torah is completed, we're going to perform the lifting, the Hagbah of the Torah and the Galila, and we're going to give those honors. And then that Torah is going to be bound, and we're going to carry it under the chuppah like a wedding ceremony and we're going to ask Rabbi Dov Ber Thaler, who was a pillar of this community and was instrumental as anybody in building this community to what it is today. And with that, we wish him mazel and bracha in his new Chabad house in Sunrise, Florida. You will all then be invited to follow the procession and the music and the dancing as we make the long way around the property, and we're going to enter into our main shul building, where we're going to continue with the Atah races and all the dancing with the Torahs. There'll be refreshments and l'chaim in there, and we invite you all to stay and celebrate with us. After the Torah is lifted, the gartel, the belt, will be tied by Rashi Minkowicz.
Amen. Yoir Adinoi Panabe Lecha Bichuneka. Yiso Adinoi Panabe Lecha V'Yosem Lecha Shalom. Samu Shmiya B'nei Yisrael V'Ani Avarachem.
The mantle will be placed on the Torah by Rashi Minkowicz. The mantle, you can see, displays the name of all Hershey's classmates who generously donated towards the Sefer Torah. And now the crown of the Torah will be placed by Naftali Berkowitz, Hershey's classmate, and the architect Ari Khan. In fact, Naftali Berkowitz is the sponsor of this beautiful crown, the Kesser.
I'm just going to read the dedication on it because it's beautiful. It describes everything. Dedicated to our dear Shlucha. Huh? Read it from there. It's right here. No. Okay. Dedicated to our dear Shlucha of Alpharetta, Georgia / John Creek, Rabbi Rashi Minkowicz, for the exceptional leadership and guidance she provided to her community, family, friends, Anash, and Shluchim worldwide. This crown is, he said I sponsor, but I honestly, sincerely sponsor it on behalf of every family member, friend, on the behalf of the community, and everyone and anyone that is inspired by Rashi. So you're all a part of this crown. Everyone that's here, everyone that's watching worldwide, you're all part of this crown.
Thank you. So, we just unplug? We are done. Appreciate it. Good stuff. You're sure they're going to let me another engagement, I think I was just supposed to broadcast.